Hello, writers. As you know, assignment 3 will be due shortly. So that assignment requires you to use at least 3 sources. Now, 2 of those sources can be from the readings that I have already supplied to you. But that means that obviously 1 you have to find on your own. So in order to prepare you to do that, in case you're not familiar with how our library here at RCBC works, I wanted to go over that with you. The easiest way, at least for me, your screen may look a little different from mine, but the easiest way for me to access the library is through Blackboard. So on my Blackboard homepage, I have a tab at the top labeled RCBC Services. As I say, there are multiple ways to get to the library, and whatever one works for you is fine. But I'm going to click RCBC Services, and what comes up here is a list of services. And I will also want you to notice here that it's not just the library. This also shows you how to find Blackboard support. It gives you information about academic advising, computer lab hours, and various offices that are designed to help you, as well as WebAdvisor. So I'm going to click here on, I think this is the 4th one down, Library. And that is going to take me to the library homepage. And again, on the library homepage, I also want you to notice some of the other things beyond just library resources for information from books and magazines and journals. I want you to notice some of the other things that are available through the library. For example, there are online citing and plagiarism workshops. If my efforts to explain MLA were not sufficient for you, you can always, of course, ask me a question, but you also might want to reinforce that learning with by attending a citing and plagiarism workshop. We have also how to get a library barcode, which you may need. You will need if you don't already have one. Information about an interlibrary loan book request. One thing about the library is if they don't have what you need, 999 times out of 1,000, I would guess, they'll get it for you if anybody has it, because they do have agreements with most libraries across the country. There are resources for English 101 students over here. There are video tutorials. There is a citing and plagiarism guide. I mentioned, and I took a lot of my information from the Purdue OWL MLA guide, so you have a link to that here. You have a citation builder. I did warn you about those, but they can be good. But what we want to focus on in this particular session are the databases that are available through the library. And these are compilations of journals, newspapers, magazines, etc., periodicals in general for the most part. And you see, when you may be prompted at that point to log in. So if you are prompted to log in, you are going to need your library card. And on the back of your library card, when you receive the library card, there should be a barcode on the back and numbers with that barcode. So you have to plug in the numbers on the back of the library card to log into the library. And then you also need the PIN number, which for the library defaults to the last 4 numbers of your phone number, whatever phone number you registered with. If you have any problems with that, you can always contact the librarian. And you see there is a chat with us button, and you may call the number listed there on the screen. So these are the sources that are available to you free of charge. One thing I want to emphasize is you do not need to and should not pay for any resources that you get. If you need something badly and you can't get it without paying for it, I would strongly encourage you to contact the library and see if they can find a way to get it for you through interlibrary loan or through some other resource. So we want to start off by just taking a brief look at some of these. Academic Search Premier you may be familiar with already. It was formerly called EBSCOhost, and it's been around for a while. It probably is the premier resource for just general subjects. And then we go into some of the specialized resources. For example, Artemis literary sources. And actually, if you click on that, that has a different title when you get to the landing page. It's called Gale Literary Sources because it is a publication of the Gale Publishing Company, which again is strong source for English and literature. If you're going into English 102 at some point, it's a great place for you to find information on literary works and doing literary analysis. You've got Bloom's Literature as well, but then you've got Business Source Elite, another EBSCOhost database. You've got ones for nursing and health sciences, Contemporary Authors for Literature, CQ Researcher, which is a general one. It's very good. Congressional Quarterly. You have ebook collections, encyclopedias, film, Funk and Wagnalls, history databases. JSTOR is a good one for language and literature, English 102. You have a couple of legal references, including what used to be called LexisNexis. It's now just called Nexis, which is a premier law database. And so on. I'm not going to try. There's the Nexis, now called Nexis Uni, and it's for criminal justice and political science. So there is lots here, and you should make yourself familiar with them just so you know what is available. There's a ton available. I'm going to illustrate searches through looking at the Artemis database. Again, it's the first one that comes up, and it is in many ways the most useful one. And I'm going to click on it, and we'll see what is on the landing page here. So here we are at the Academic Search Premier landing page, and as the librarian said, there are many ways to filter your results. For example, you can do a search here for a particular author, for title, for subject terms, etc., etc. You can use Boolean phrases if you wish. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I'm just going over the basics here. You can add an and to narrow, filter your results. And I'm not going to narrow too much. I'm going to try one of the topic that you're going to be working on for your fourth essay, your final research document, and I'm going to enter food and nutrition because it's about government regulation of food and nutrition in our unit titled What's to Eat. So let's see what happens when we search for that. And you see we get about 250,000 results, or almost over 200,000 results. So obviously we need to seriously narrow our search. I'm sure most of you are pretty familiar with expanding search terms when you get too few results, and narrowing search terms when you get too many results. So let me try government regulation of nutrition. Okay, and when I search for that, let's see how many results I get. I only get 19. And as I look at some of the search results, it doesn't look like they're real relevant to what I want to do. African countries. We don't really have too much Australia here. Inoculation message treatment. So we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to change a word here and see, well, what happens if I say government regulation of food? And I search. And I failed to do something that I wanted to do, which is to, as the librarian recommended, full text. Now, you do not have to check full text. She said you have to do this, and I understand what she meant, but it's possible that you may be doing some advanced research. She's just saying that because she wants you to find only things that our library has access to. But our library can get you things that it doesn't own or is not able to provide to you through this database. But I think it is a good idea for your purposes to select full text. And that way you know that the results that come up you will be able to access. So I'm going to put I put that narrowed down. Now, scholarly journals down here, if you are in a course that requires that you only use peer-reviewed sources, then you would check this. I am not making such a requirement for this particular essay, but there are certainly courses where you will be required to use only peer-reviewed sources. But let's again check on what might be available to us now as we look at the search terms government regulation of food, and bingo, administering real food, how the Eat Food movement should and should not approach government regulation. And another beautiful part about EBSCOhost and most of these databases is they provide you with what is called an abstract or summary of what is in the article. And just quickly looking at this summary, if you begin to read it, the first line includes the author that we're reading this week. Led by Michael Pollan, the fast food movement has changed the way many Americans think about what they eat. So you know now that this is going to be a very useful source to you. And all you need to do is come down here to PDF full text, click on that, my computer is not the, unfortunately, swiftest in the world. But if you come down here, it's loading. If you come down here, there is the article. Now, the first thing you might notice is that it's 58 pages long. I would have my doubts that you're going to read the entire article. But that is not necessarily a bad thing. You're looking for maybe specific information to support your thesis. And so you don't need to read every word here. You do have to make sure that you don't quote anyone out of context. But here you again have a sort of summary at the beginning, and then you have a table of contents. And the table of contents kind of gives you a good idea of where information that might be quite useful to you is. By the way, I would also add that 58 pages is not as long as it sounds because there are quite a few footnotes. And certainly you're not going to want to read every footnote in any case. But the table of contents is useful. If we go to the beginning of the article, I think that the introduction is useful because it talks about how this movement to regulate food got started, and what the important part that Michael Pollan played in that. if we go on down, moving quickly through, what exactly is the Eat Food movement and what is its philosophy? This section explains that to you. It explains that historically, long-standing food cultures answered the question of what to eat. You ate what your parents and grandparents ate and what your ancestors had eaten before that. You might also have questions about what is the Western diet. Pollan defines it here and there in a sort of scattershot way, but here it's defined more specifically. Also, the word nutritionism is used by Pollan, and you might wonder what that is. And that's explained here in this section. So that's very useful to you. Also want to go to the section on, let's see, government regulation and Eat Food movement. Well, that's exactly the topic of the paper. So that's not your thesis, of course, because it's just a topic. But you know that this is going to be a very good article. You certainly can read through it, scan it, get the information that you want, and follow good research practices by making sure that you're taking notes at all times and that you identify in quotation marks when you write it down what is quoted and what is paraphrased and where exactly the source was. Now here you have enough information that you're required to give more than just the URL because this is a reproduction of the print copy. So you can give complete information as if you were reading the print copy, but you would add the URL as well. That's the requirement. Now, I would want to warn you if I can go back. I'm not sure if I go back where I will land, but if I go back to where this article appeared, yes. This is the abstract here, and I want to warn you that you should not quote or paraphrase or cite from the abstract. It's kind of, I wouldn't say cheating, but it's not legitimate. It means that you didn't feel like reading the actual paper, so you got Cliff's Notes or Spark Notes or whatever. And that's also a good place for me to say that in no case should you be using any resources such as, and this is my number one public enemy, Course Hero. There are probably other ones that are very similar, but I think that's certainly the one that I've seen pop up most frequently. Do not go anywhere near Course Hero. Similarly, in the literature field, something like Lit Notes, Spark Notes, Cliff Notes, anything that says study guide, anything that says homework helper, Quora, any of those things. I'm not saying you need to find scholarly resources, but I am saying that you need to get good, credible sources. And one of the ways that you judge credibility is there a named author? I think for most of the sources that I've just mentioned, there is no named author. There is, in some cases, not only no peer review, there's no review at all of the content. So, as you know, in wikis and blogs, anybody can write anything that he or she wants. But in a magazine, there is always an editor and a publisher. In books, there is always a publisher. There is always an editor. So those would tend to be more credible sources. With a book, just the idea it went through the vetting process to become a book, as long as it's not self-published, gives it some credibility. I want to just close by reminding you what a great resource librarians are. So don't be afraid. There is a tab to chat. You can email or you can call the library. I don't know currently what the situation is with library hours and library accessibility, but you could check with them on that to get up-to-date information. So if you have any questions as you plunge into your research, usually you have to read more than one article in order to really do a good job, to know what some of the differing points of view are. So I hope you'll explore the sources as much as you can in the time available. So again, call me if you or email me if you have any questions.